What's up, everyone? It is Ricci here from the F1 podcast. Happy June 1st, 2023. And boy, it is a scorcher out in Toronto today. I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Cleary. Andrew, hope you're doing well. And before we get started, I just want to thank all the fans that came out to the Blue Jays game the other day. We got to see the Jays win, which is exciting. And also we ate a lot of loony dogs. But Andrew, how are you doing, my man?
Yeah, unfortunately I couldn't make it Tuesday, but great game. Great to see everybody go out and, join up, meet Ricci in, I believe, the WestJet flight deck you guys were at. Or
it was closed.
Oh, no way. It was closed?
So we had to stand on the top row, the top section of it. But, and then we kind of just started doing laps around the stadium. But ton of fun for a last minute event.
Perfect. Well, even then, that's still great to see everybody that went out. Thank you so much for joining Ricci, doing a little quick meetup at the game, as well as happy Pride Month to everybody, considering this is the 1st of June. Hope everyone has a great Pride Month and just excited to talk about the Monaco GP today. It is sweltering, though. I'll give you that, Ricci. It's a modest, I think, 27 degrees Celsius in my office right now.
Yeah, it's like 31 over here. I don't know how you were. I know we don't have video for today's episode, but you were wearing a sweater. I don't know how you're doing it. So let's talk a little bit about Monaco, and what better way to start off with Monaco than the fastest lap
in the new Mercedes car, the upgraded Mercedes car, which was a surprise, at 1:15. I think 0.65 seconds as well. So Ricci, it's your turn this week to do the fastest lap recap.
Okay, so just some context for the listeners. The last time I did this, I couldn't do it. So I've tried very hard. I've been practicing by the mirror all night last night, and I'm ready to do this. So let's get at it.
All right, so we're going to count you down in 3, 2, 1. 5 lights are out.
Max Verstappen wins again. Fernando Alonso on the podium. Alpine on the podium, ? The race became a slip and slide, and there was no safety car. Ferrari screws up again, and Mercedes upgrades actually work.
20 seconds required.
That was 20 seconds?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of filler for the next 53 seconds.
You lose.
So to build on what Ricci mentioned, Max Verstappen was a tired wizard this weekend, being able to last 53 laps on the medium, of all things, when projected that you can only go about 30 laps, to the point where he was able to then go do the switchover onto the inners when it got wet. Alonso being in P2, being 20 some odd seconds behind Verstappen, made the wrong call, or his team made the wrong call to try going on dries in the free speed stop when they could have gone on inters. As a result, they kind of negated it when they went back on inters the next lap and finished a good about 25, 30 seconds behind Max in P2 for Alonso. And yes, Esteban Ocon getting his first podium at the Principality, which was quite impressive, but can have a big thank you to Charles Leclerc for a penalty in P3 originally.
Yeah, that's pretty. Thanks for the filler. We can debate who had the better update. We'll let the fans decide that on the Spotify poll. But all seriousness, I think it's no secret I have some issues with the Monaco Grand Prix, especially in previous years, just like how the races kind of turned out. But this weekend was actually pretty exciting. I thought we saw a really interesting race, and especially with the rain coming in for 10-15 laps, really don't understand how we didn't have a safety car. But I think qualifying was like a straight shootout. I think that was probably one of the better qualifyings of the season, and we saw like whether was it going to be Ferrari, was it going to be Red Bull, and then Max Verstappen was able to get it on the last lap as usual. But they always talk about, if depending when it comes to Monaco, where you finish is most likely going to be your spot. And we saw that with Max and Alonso this weekend. They were able to have really impressive qualifyings and able to solidify their positions going into Sunday. Leclerc did receive a 3-second grid penalty, so that really put them in the back burner. It just, I don't know about you, Andrew, but another race, another win by Red Bull, and it's like, when is he going to clinch it? When is Max going to clinch it?
No, yeah, building off of what you said, I thought that was the best qualifying I've watched in a long time. That was like just the absolute. Q3 was incredible. We had Ocon go quickest, and then you had, I think, Leclerc that went quickest, and then Alonso beating both, having a chance to get on the podium in Monaco with Max being 2 tenths down going into the final sector, ends up banging up against the wall, but I don't know, ended up slingshotting himself out to get to take pole by 3 tenths. Like, incredible by Max to like basically cover half a second in a sector at Monaco. Like, come on, that's insane. You're going to finish where you start in this case at Monaco, which for the most part did, with unfortunately the impeding of Lando Norris in, I believe it was Q1 or Q2, may have been Q3, for Charles cost him three grid places, kind of put him on the back burner at his home GP. Unfortunately not getting that luck again, but he finished in the points. Let's take, let's try to find the positive out there for Ferrari fans in that case. But yeah, it was kind of like the race was shaping up to be what it was after the first few laps, kind of was going to maintain, its spot for, it did for about 53 laps. But then when the rain came, holy crap, what a complete switch. And it was just pure chaos.
Well, I think let's maybe get started about like some of these winners and losers. And I think one of the big things that really saw was Ferrari's miscommunication and not a proper time to really pit. They thought it was a good idea to stay out there on the mediums when the track was absolutely like drenched, and both of them double stacking at like the worst possible time, and both the Mercedes were able to pass them with like flying colors. And it just, I feel like if Leclerc was drive for next year, just don't even race in Monaco. Just like, you know what, let's just not even bother. Let's just like immediately DNF, or just pull a Sergio Perez and just crash and just like, all right, I'm done racing this week.
Did that happen last year too? Strategy again. It's just kind of like become a common element for Ferrari's pick or Ferrari strategists. But I watched the race this weekend, and I, as an Aston Martin fan, I was like, oh man, if Alonso can get Verstappen here at the start, maybe there's a chance we win this. And Verstappen Alonso can get Verstappen at the start, and he just built this huge lead, right? But when the rain came, I was like, oh my goodness, if you can pit this correctly, and if Alonso went on to the inners right away, there could have been an opportunity to catch up to Max on the pit stop and potentially fight for that P1 spot. But no, they made the wrong call and effectively negated anything that could happen. And kind of, Max waltzing to victory. I don't know about you, Ricci, but I don't know if he's going to lose a race at all this season.
No, and especially, no, I don't. I just think that pure dominance, obviously this week was like an interesting moment because Sergio Perez did not have a very good qualifying and obviously crashed. So that caused him to be lower in the grid. So it was just literally the Max Verstappen show. But I just wanted to build very quickly on just like some of the just miscommunications on Ferraris before. It's like lap 20, the engineers told Sainz to come in to try to overtake Ocon. Then he was told to stay out. The order was repeated 6 laps later. Changed to stay out, stay on. He eventually boxed with new mediums, rejoining 7th. Like, I don't know. It was just a dumpster fire of communications for Ferrari this year. But like, this is, I don't know. I think Max is in a very well position to break some more additional records this year. And I think he overpassed or tied Vettel for most wins for Red Bull.
Past Vettel so his 39th win as a Red Bull racing driver at Monaco. He also led his 2000th lap of his career, which is like, I believe now 7th in all of F1 history to do that. And he's extended his championship lead to 39 points or in round 6. I don't know. It just, I understand people are going to boo. People are going to be upset or they might find this boring. But truthfully, like, I don't think we appreciate enough about what Max is doing in the sport. And if he runs the table, it would be an absolutely historic season. And that would mean that Red Bull would be the first team ever to win all races in a season. Even Mercedes 2016 could not do that. So to think you'd be surpassing the Mercedes 2016 team that was such a dominant with Rosberg and Hamilton, like that, like we'd be witnessing something very special, in my opinion.
If this will be the earliest that he will clinch the title But like, I think there's needs to be a lot of kudos to have to go to Alpine. I think this is another team, especially like Ocon, had a terrific weekend, and I think definitely, we talked about this earlier in the season. Is like, how is him and Gasly going to come to work together or on a French team, and who is going to be that number one driver there? But he really, I think this definitely needed a morale boost for Ocon. I mean, this is I think the first time a French driver was on the podium in Monaco since 1996, and his first podium since the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix, which I think he won that. Yeah, he won that one. That was really significant for a drive like him, and I don't know if that really helps him for next weekend in Barcelona, but I think that he was definitely happy. He's now have a first place, a second place, and a third place finish. Now he's completed the trifecta on the podium.
I'll tell you what, that Alpine car is scary good. It's a dark horse in my opinion. They figured out how to, they figured it out in Monaco. Again, I think it'll be a better determination of how good they can be in Barcelona this week. Monaco, very, very slow corners in that regards, right? Teams like Aston Martin and whatnot could, improve in that case. But if we're looking at pure speed, Barcelona, especially with the new track configuration, getting rid of that chicane at the end, a lot of medium speed, a lot of fast, like high speed corners. So it'll be really interesting to see how Alpine, and more so, especially being at the battle of the front of the midfield, can they kind of break that threshold into being in that top echelon with Aston Martin, with Mercedes, with Ferrari, and with Red Bull. I know Red Bull's in a league of its own, but if we're looking at kind of like that upper echelon as well, being in part of those three teams in that discussion, that would be really great because Mercedes really boosted their car this week with upgrades. Tyler and I were kind of laughing at the design look in the previous podcast episode, but seemed to work in Monaco. Will it work in Barcelona? We won't know. But all points considered, it could lead to significant upgrades for multiple tracks, especially. That's been like kind of their goal, right? At Alpine is to fight with the top four, and to see if they can prove it would be a great opportunity. It would be great to see, I guess, in a sense, at Barcelona with their upgrade package coming in.
Well, it's great that you mentioned that, because this podium now puts them fifth in the Constructors' Championship. And they might have 35 points, but if Ferrari continues to have this bad of a struggle, and we only have one podium this season, like this could be a recipe for them to overjump Ferrari if they continue to have some bad weekends. I need to commend you, Andrew. Like, Aston Martin is having an amazing season, or should I say, the Fernando Alonso is having an amazing season. Lance Stroll obviously did not have the weekend of weekends. Is there this is like a touchy subject, but like, do you think there should be concern with Austin's second driver? I think or is it overshadowed by Fernando Alonso's dominance this year alone?
Looking at the stats, Fernando Alonso, I think, has scored 2/3 of the points for the team, and that's a pretty, we're kind of like in this Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo situation here at Aston Martin, and it's really frustrating now. I can kind of understand what Erica was going through a couple of years ago, because it's frustrating to see that you have a car that's legit the second fastest car on the grid, based on what Alonso's been able to do with it, finishing P3 at, when both Red Bulls have been ahead, or even finishing P2 in Monaco, right? Legit having the second fastest car on the grid this weekend. And then watching Lance Stroll just kind of fart around in the back, fighting in the midfield with this amazing car. It's allowed Mercedes, likes of Mercedes, and even potentially Ferrari to catch up to us in P2. And I know at the beginning of the season, everyone was, touting us, be like, oh, it's an amazing season already, how we can already have these conversations. But you know what? Like, I understand that maybe we're kind of punching above our weight or at the feel of the season. I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like we have an amazing car that can, with upgrades coming through the season, could really be the second fastest car on the grid overall. And we need both drivers to be able to maximize the potential of the car in order for that to be the case. One is definitely doing it, and the other, who's, the owner's dad or the owner's son, is not. And it's really frustrating, because at what point do, the board, or even Lawrence Stroll, like, I don't think he would ever do this, but like, what point do you have to like sit down and consider releasing your son because of how poor his performances have been in that car recently.
It's funny that we mentioned that because, like, on a different topic, but like you kind of seen this going on, this kind of dispute going on at here in Toronto at Toronto FC with Michael Bradley, the player, and his dad, Bob Bradley, the TFC coach, and they're obviously not having a season a season to remember, being one of the more bottom teams at Eastern. So like here, especially for Aston Martin, is like, at what point do you need to decide we need to put a better driver in that second position, or, and it's like, if there's that father-son connection, does that make sense, or is that too much a conflict of interest? But I guess time will tell, and we'll just kind of see before the summer break to see if this is going to be addressed or if this is going to continue. This, I think overall, I think there was some very good racing this weekend, and I'm shocked that we didn't get a safety car, and how big these cars are compared to previous years, but.
I couldn't believe, like, when the race came. So Tyler mentioned we mentioned in the podcast last week, Tyler mentioned this too. The FIA removed the tire blankets for the wet tires, right? Inters and wets. And look how that transpired this weekend in Monaco. The amount of people that were going off track. I think K-Mag went off track about 3 times. We had Lance Stroll go off track a couple times. People were, spinning, booting into the wall. Yuki was having a terrible time in the rain, but that could have been brake balance as well. But overall, it became a sloppy race when the rain came out, and I was shocked that nobody crashed hard enough into the wall to have a safety car, because people were reversing on track. People were, spinning it around. Just the fact that people kept the car going was incredible to watch. And another race in a row where we don't have a safety car to boot. So, pretty impressive from the driver's standpoint, but I was just kind of in shock that there was not a safety car at all when the rain came.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and I'm curious to see. I wonder what's going to happen in Barcelona. But I think just kind of pivoting to the next thing, I kind of actually want to talk about some of the news that's come out this week. But to build off the success, because McLaren both got double points this week, they had a pretty good post Monaco with this huge pickup with Rob Marshall from Red Bull, regarding, I think it's the new technical director that will start in January 1st, 2024. This is a pretty big pickup for them, and especially, they didn't have the greatest of starts of the season, but this might be promising. No?
Yeah, they've Rob Marshall. It was currently, or his current role is chief engineer officer at Red Bull, right? Very high up. So the fact that they've been able to attract him to get into as a new technical chief for 2024, starting in 2024, 2025, 2026. McLaren isn't playing any games. They've identified what the problems have been internally. They have dealt with that to Zach Brown's, I guess in a sense, overall identification of the issue, and to him being able to bring in some key people from Ferrari and now Red Bull in order to enhance the performance of the car. I think McLaren could be a pretty good contender in the next few years again, going back. But I'm very curious as to why he left Red Bull. He's been heavily invested in terms of the 2026 development of the car and maybe the powertrain. So is it a question of whether or not that he doesn't believe in what Red Bull's doing with the powertrain or the power unit development for 2026? Or is it just a new challenge that he just wants to take on as well? So curious to see what the reasoning is for that move.
Yeah, because we've kind of seen that in other sports lately, where there might be someone that is on a very dominant team but wants to go somewhere else and just either coast or just wants a new challenge and try to compete themselves. So I'm curious to see. I think that's a huge get for McLaren. The guy has 25 years of experience in motorsport, with 17 years at Red Bull, and a wealth of experience, expertise and experience. I think could do wonders for McLaren. And if this is not their year, but 2 younger-ish drivers to kind of compete for next year and may make them a little bit more competitive. I think this is a good get, and promising for the Papayas, if you ask me.
It's funny now, you see like how McLaren is, attracting this talent. Aston Martin has been attracting this talent. So now you have kind of, Alpine's been pushing up the grid itself. So you kind of almost have like 6 teams now on the grid, or 6 constructors on the grid, who are now wanting to fight for that top spot. And that could create some really great competition in the next few years, and then maybe from 2026 onward. So I think, as you don't want to see, as a Red Bull fan, you don't want to see Rob Marshall leave. As an F1 fan, you're going to be buzzing about this, because this could create some really exciting competition down the road, and hoping to a point where like anybody can win any race at that point.
Well, that's what we hope, but hopefully the regulations can address some of this rocket speeds that are in certain cars. Not going to name ones, but like, yeah. Also, I kind of wanted to talk about something else. I think what we've been noticing with the success with Drive Survive and other series for sports, and I know a couple of ones have kind of Drive to Survive themes, styles per se, but it looks like there's another Formula One kind of documentary coming out with Lewis Hamilton. I was hoping you just raised this with me in text message. Do you want to speak to a little bit about that, Andrew?
Yeah, it looks like so. It's been recently announced, but I think it was brought up this week as well. But Lewis Hamilton is going to be producing his own documentary with Apple. But in the sense that it's going to be about his life, about his career, about the journey where he is to this point. I think it's going to take on inspiration like the Senna document, the Senna documentary, which was really great, I think, which was his inspiration, right? That was Hamilton. Hamilton was inspired by Senna in order to get into racing. I think, having the life story of Hamilton, it has not been an easy road by far for him to get to where he is today in Formula One. So it'll be really great to see, how he's been able to overcome the trials and the tribulations and all, the negative aspects that's happened in his life in order to get to being a 7-time world champion. And it'll be an inspiration for future F1 drivers as well. So I think that Drive to Survive, it's going to create a new fan base, especially with the younger generation. That maybe Drive to Survive has been, but I think more so in terms of the racing aspect as well.
I'm curious to see how they're going to portray the whole Nico Rosberg relationship in this documentary, and I wonder if Lewis is going to be pretty open about it, or is he going to be very hush hush?
I would pay money to see them both in a room do an interview.
Oh, that'd be top dollar, man.
Maybe like a 10-year anniversary in 2026.
10-year anniversary of that double crash on first lap. I forget what track that was.
It was Spain. It was in Barcelona this week. So
oh my gosh. Well, speaking about Barcelona, let's talk about any key insights for this weekend. I think this is a big milestone for both the Spanish drivers on the grid, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso. One is riding some very extreme momentum and the other one is in a very cold area. So I think there's going to be a lot more pressure on both those drivers just to kind of compete this weekend. It'll be very hard to kind of to dictate because they're obviously coming off 2 highs, but I think they just need to focus on what is to deliver points or podiums for the team. I think is probably my advice for those 2 drivers going into this weekend.
Yeah, maybe the stars might be aligning for Alonso this weekend, because Spanish Grand Prix this weekend will be the 1086th F1 race in its entire history, as well as it's going to be the 362nd race start for Fernando Alonso, meaning that if he starts the race this weekend, barring anything happens, he will have actually started in a third of F1's entire races. How insane is that?
That's wild.
And as well, he's going for win number 33. He's in Garage 33 this weekend. He will participate in 33.33333333 F1 Grand Prix starts. I mean, like, all these numbers are aligned in terms of 3. So guess what? He'll probably finish P3 behind Perez and Verstappen.
You hear it here first. We're calling for Red Bull win and Fernando Alonso to get 3rd place to kind of keep on this track. I think my eyes definitely will be on Alpine to see if some of that momentum they particularly with Ocon, and see if that car can deliver in a track like Barcelona. I'm curious to see if some of this news kind of motivates both the McLaren drivers to have better to continue to get points again for the team.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm just like, how is Ferrari going to bounce back after last week's race?
Well, and then also I'm thinking, are Mercedes upgrades a fluke because it was Monaco, or are they actually, is it legit business we're talking about here coming into Barcelona?
I think time will tell, and it all happens this weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix. And just before we go, we just wanted to give a quick announcement. Our pals at the Track Limits podcast, really nice people. I've met them a couple weeks ago with our event. They're going to be at Trinity Common this Saturday. Sorry, not this Saturday. This Sunday. I'll make sure I'll post something in the YouTube and Instagram post as well. I think they'll have another simulator as well. It looked really sick on social media. Andrew, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but yeah, I would highly doubt everyone goes out this weekend to support Trinity Common, and obviously our pals at Track Limits. So, obviously, and also we're getting closer to 400 followers on Instagram. I just believe, and just double checking right now, we're at 392. So we're 8 away. Can we hit 400 before Montreal? And quick Montreal update is myself, Tyler, and Spencer maybe will be going to Montreal. So you want to hang out with us? Message us on the F1 podcast. We'd love to hang out, love to see some fans, and hopefully we get to see Ferrari in the podium. That's just me thinking. I think Tyler will disagree with that one. But Andrew, it's very good as always to talk about some of the things that are happening in Formula One this weekend. And appreciate all the feedback that we're getting from our fans. So thank you for listening to this week's episode, season 3, episode 12. And make sure to tune in next week as we'll go over the Spanish Grand Prix. I am your host, Ricci, with my amazing co-host, Andrew Cleary. Erica sends her regrets. She's back from vacation, I believe, this week. So we can try to get her on for the next week's podcast. But very fired up to talk everything about Spanish Grand Prix next weekend. Andrew, would you like to do the honors to send us off?
For sure. Thank you so much, Ricci, for a great podcast this weekend. Just want to say thank you again for all the support that we've had for the F1 podcast on Instagram, on YouTube, going to the Looney Dog Nights. We really do appreciate just seeing our fans. And, again, fire us your questions, fire us your feedback. We're here to grow together. And with that said, this weekend is the Spanish Grand Prix. Let's see if the stars align for Alonso, or if Red Bull's race to perfection is going to continue on in Barcelona. That is it for this week. Again, follow us on Instagram at F1.podcast. Follow us on YouTube at XRicci, as well as follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. John, let's have a great weekend. Maybe we can kind of cool down from the sweltering heat, and we'll see how the cars unfold at the Spanish Grand Prix.